Hi everyone. Chapter 1, Section 2 is about order of operations. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to evaluate numerical expressions by using the order of operations. So let's talk about what that word evaluate means. Hopefully you've noticed hidden in that word is the word value. Kind of. We just need an E on the end of it. So whenever you are told to evaluate, you are not solving. Instead, you're finding the value of an expression. So your answer should be a number. Where when you're solving, you end up with an answer. So the difference is when you're solving, you should get something like x equals 3. That 3 is the answer to it. For this, all we're going to do basically is simplify and get a number out. So here's an example. I would tell you to evaluate these two expressions here. And what that means is we need to figure out what this value is. So what is 3 to the 4th power? Remember that that's just 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So we can do this without a calculator. We all know 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 9 gives us 81. That is the value of 3 to the 4th power. Now this one over here is a little harder, but remember these parentheses here, if there's no symbol in between, means that we're going to multiply. We're not going to distribute this to all of the numbers in here. We're just going to multiply 4 times 78.95. Now, if we want to not use a calculator, we can do this the old school way, times 4. And then remember, you got to do 4 times each one of these things. So 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 9 is 36, 37, 38. 4 times 8 is 32, 33, 34, 35. And then 7 times 4 is 28, 29, 30, 31. And then remember we have two numbers after the decimal, so we need two numbers after the decimal. So this value is 315.80. So this whole order of operations thing, there's a certain order that we have to simplify things in. And hopefully PEMDAS sounds familiar to you, but PEMDAS is kind of the elementary school version of the order of operations. So I want you to get rid of this P, and I want you to draw in a G instead. We are going to use GEMDAS. The reason that we're changing that is because before, you only had parentheses as your grouping symbols. Now, in algebra, we're going to have a lot more as our grouping symbols. So that's what the G stands for, anything that groups things together. So the most basic grouping symbol is obviously the parentheses, but we can also have brackets that'll group things together. We could have something like a square root with a bunch of stuff in there. That's a grouping symbol, or absolute value bars. That's also a grouping symbol. And we can even have squiggly brackets like this with stuff in between. The E still stands for exponents. The reason M and D are together is because you need to do multiplication and division as you go right to left. So it doesn't matter which one you see first, you're doing all of it right to left. Same thing with addition and subtraction. It's right to left. So let's practice this. I'm going to write GEMDAS up here so we remember. Remember, these two are together and these two are together. So for the very first one, I'm going to look over this and there are no grouping symbols, so I can cross that off. And the next thing I'm going to look for are exponents. There's an exponent here. So everything else is going to stay exactly the same. 16 minus 8 divided by, but instead of 2 squared, I'm going to write what 2 squared is, which is 4. And then it still has the plus 14. So now that I've done exponents, I need to do multiplication and division together. So I'm going to go through and any that I see I'm going to do. So this operation right here means I have to do 8 divided by 4. So the 16 stays the same, the subtraction sign stays the same, but this then becomes 2, and the plus 14 stays the same. And then finally, the last one, addition and subtraction, right to left. So this is what I come to first. 16 minus 2 is 14. And then plus another 14 is 28. That is the answer to that problem. Let's do 3. Let's skip 2. So same thing. I'm going to go through GEMDIS. I'll write it again. And I'm going to look for grouping symbols first. And there happens to be grouping symbols here. So I'm going to rewrite everything the same except for that. And 10 minus 6 is really 4. And then once I've done grouping symbols, I'm going to look for exponents. I don't have any, so then I got to do multiplication and division from right to left. So that means these guys have to be done first. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, plus these guys next, which is 20. So I end up with 22. Let's try number 4. So same thing, grouping symbols are first. And if I notice, I have grouping symbols here and then grouping symbols inside of there. So this definitely needs to be done first. So I'm going to do everything the same. But instead of that parenthesis, it's really just going to be 5 squared. And then before I do anything else, I have to simplify everything inside of those brackets. So then I run through GEMDIS inside the brackets. I have my grouping symbol down. This parentheses doesn't really need to be there. So now I have exponents. So I have 6 and then 32 minus 25. And then inside of the brackets, I don't have multiplication or division, but I have addition and subtraction. So it ends up being this. 32 minus 25 is 7. Now, just like up here, where there wasn't a symbol in between here, we knew this was multiplication. The same thing for brackets. Brackets are just like bigger parentheses. So we got to multiply those two together. And 6 times 7 is 42. All right, number 5, the last one. So one thing that's kind of understood in math that we're a little too lazy to write down is anytime you have a fraction, the stuff on top is grouped together and the stuff on bottom is grouped together. So let's treat those separately because basically this symbol right here means division. So on the top, I don't have any grouping symbols, but I have an exponent. 2 to the 3rd power is 8. And then 8 minus 5 is 3. So now my top is as simple as possible. I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom. 15 plus 9. And then 15 plus 9 will give me 24. And now you can rewrite this if you really want to. What is 3 divided by 24? And since this is an improper fraction, it's not going to be as easy as if it was 24 divided by 3. But we can still simplify this. 3/24 is the same thing as 1/8. So you should be able to evaluate numerical expressions by using the order of operations. If you think you can do that, now is a great time to prove it. Make sure you write down any questions you have and we can go over them tomorrow in class. Enjoy your night.